Nicola, followed by Christina Fox.
Okay, I just want to address to what our Shasta County woman here had to say. There's a lot more to that story. After the meeting, she was basically said, don't point fingers. If you don't know anybody, don't judge. If you are talking in general, you have somebody you're speaking about, say who it is. Don't just say in general because we are MMJ patients that our children are going to be small criminals. Okay, so in my friend saying that, her response was, kiss my ass, bitch. Okay, out of that woman back there. That's why that altercation started out. Had nothing to do with MMJ. Okay, there was no reason for her to that. And today, by the way, she called me a tramp when I walked past her. This is the kind of woman who came up here talking about. So I just wanted to put all that out there. That, you know, her story is not the truth in what she's saying. She only seems to want to tell you what she wants.
Point of order, and can we stop the clock so she could have some more time? I'd like to remind everybody that our young people are encouraged to watch these meetings. Could you consider the words that you're sharing?
I will, but I'm just telling you where it
I'm
came
not
out
just
of her
talking to
mouth.
you, but I'm talking at the moment.
Okay.
Could you consider the words that you're saying to our school children that we're encouraging to watch these meetings? You can express yourselves.
Okay.
Express it in a decent way, please.
But that did not come out of my mouth. That came out of her mouth.
Please,
So,
please
you were told.
proceed.
Okay. This is just, the committee needs to be formed. You need to be, knowledge is power. You guys need to learn. You don't, obviously you were sitting here 3 weeks ago asking us what the laws were. You did not even know yourselves what the 215 or SB 420 in, how many plants we were allowed to grow or anything. So obviously you don't have the scientific facts or know any, you need this committee. You need to have this done. I mean, you're looking at the big growers want you what you want out of here. Not the small MMJ patients, and to consider it recreation. We're not here for recreational use of marijuana. We're here for our MMJ patients. Not if the recreation. I mean, that's in other states. It's already illegal. That's coming here next. I mean, we all know it. You guys know it. I mean, it's just a matter of time before it is here. So, I mean, I don't know if this is your way of trying to get in control, but it will be. And you talk about money. Here's your biggest solution right here. Is growing marijuana will survive. Every budget, every problem you have of money will be solved. It's a fact. Wait till you see how Colorado, how much they advance, and Washington, now that it is considered recreational and they are getting taxes from it. Okay, I mean, it is coming. So you really need to get to that facts. Form a committee, get knowledge, learn from everybody what it's about instead of just making your own opinions. And knowledge is power. You need to read about it. You need to learn about it. You obviously don't know, or you wouldn't have asked us the questions on what the law was. So I would be more than happy to be on this committee. I know a lot about this, and I want to stand up for our side, and I don't see how you cannot have a committee to learn, because every one of you up there should know the exact laws. You shouldn't be asking anybody in the public how many plants we're allowed to grow. That's your job to know.
Thank you.
Ours. Thank you.
Christina Fox, followed by Betty Cunningham.
Hi, my name is Christina. Basically, I wanted to thank you guys for, basically wanting to create this committee in the first place and wanting to be able to get both sides. But I think there should have been more information about who's allowed to be on the committee, how you can get on the committee, basically what you guys are looking for the people to be on this committee. And I think it should be balanced. It should be fair. It should be people that are, working with the city, or people that are just completely against it. That's fine. But you guys should also make it even to regular citizens that are just advocates, and then medical marijuana users, not people that want to recreational use it. We're not here for that. I'm sick and tired of hearing it, actually, because we're not here for that. We're here for medical marijuana patients such as myself, not a teenager or a 50-year-old or whatever that just wants to smoke pot just to get high. We're not here to talk about them. You guys are here to talk about massive grows and then our grows. Why they're put in the same area, I have no idea. It doesn't really make any sense to me. We have 6 plants, not 90, 100, 450, 870. I have 6 plants. That's it. We're here to talk about the regulations and making it so that I can still have my medicine. Not, oh, I want to have a big old field and this warehouse full of 400 plants and I want to store 18 pounds of marijuana in my backyard. None of that. I'm not doing any of that. I've been doing everything you guys tell me to by the law, by the book. Everything I do is completely legal by what you guys tell me to do. And if you guys take away everything, then there's really no choice but to go to, these other people and buy it on the streets and all that other stuff. And that's just buying unsafe medicine that can make me sick. So
Thank you.
please form the committee, make sure that it's balanced, make sure that it's fair and not one-sided so that we can really figure this out fairly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty Cunningham, followed by Rob McDonald.
Good morning. Betty Cunningham, Chemical People. Thank you for allowing me this time this morning. I do want to bring it back to the 5 recommendations. I was a little confused by Mr. Lisa's comments and a little bit of a roundabout. I still don't understand what his recommendations were based on what these recommendations are, so I'm going to refer to these. We are all concerned about the illegal grows. Chairman Kehoe referred to all the phone calls and the information that has come to you over this past year with this last growth season that we had. We're all looking at how detrimental those illegal grows are for the environment, for our health, for everything. These recommendations, I believe, were to increase the effectiveness of the current medical marijuana cultivation ordinance. I see no reason why these cannot be considered today unless I'm missing something. These would go a long way, take a first step in making that ordinance have more teeth in it. It would also allow for a resource code enforcement officer as well as the Sheriff's Department to have more personnel available to look at those illegal grows and to bring those into ordinance or to get rid of them. I just want to understand what you're going to be doing, so if afterwards you could comment on that. These are good first steps. I would urge you to go ahead and adopt those to move forward, not maintain the status quo that we had last year. We cannot go through another season like that. The gentleman who spoke earlier, you saw the emotion, you know what he is feeling with his 2 parcels. Multiply that times everybody. All of us are living in an area where there are marijuana grows that are illegal. I'm not talking about the patient grows, the 6 plants. I'm talking about the illegal grows. This will go a long way in making that much better for everyone. We do not want to wait. We do not want the status quo we had last year, and I urge you to move forward. Don't wait for somebody else in this state to make a decision for what's best for our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob McDonald, followed by Sherry Beck.
Unconstitutional. That is what your ordinance is and federal laws regarding marijuana are. The original Tax Stamp Act took marijuana away by saying, oh, you have to buy these stamps, we're not going to print. It was an end around the Constitution, and everything Nixon, Reagan, Bush, and Bush did are direct violations of the 4th and 5th Amendment, direct violations of people's property rights and natural rights under God. God created marijuana. It took 75 years of working toward a constitutional amendment to take alcohol away from the people. It only lasted, 11 to 13 years? But marijuana, they did an end around. And then somewhere in the 60s, they decided, well, we can stomp on the American people's rights any way we want. And they have in many ways, not just marijuana. You guys know that your ordinance is unconstitutional, or you would have been out busting all these big grows. My recommendation is to form the committee, start putting together some decent ways for the community to work together, quit listening to people that worry about smell, or else you're going to have everybody that lives next to someone that grows jasmine, wisteria, roses, every other fragrance you can think of. There's a lot of trees out there that put out fragrances that are worse than marijuana. You want complaints on them all? Do you want to spend your time that way? You got to put your foot down and say enough. Okay, now natural rights for people. The United States of America, free country with a constitution. That constitution directs you on what you can and can't do and directs the federal government on what they can and can't do. You took your own personal oath to that Constitution. So the fact that Ronald Reagan violated his oath, and then William Rehnquist and the Supreme Court put in their briefs that they knew they were going against the Constitution on roadside checkpoints. But they did it anyway. They upheld it. Why? Because they don't care about the Constitution. Well, we the people do. And property rights, individual rights, natural rights are more important than people wanting to stick their noses where they don't belong and constantly tell people that their, you know what, stinks. So I think that a committee is a good idea. I honestly wish you guys would educate yourselves. My father died of cancer in 2001. He was a highway patrolman for 25 years. He refused to use any to relieve his chemo sickness. Well, now that I know, and I'm seeing 10 studies telling me so, that it cures cancer, imagine how pissed I am that he was taught all his life how terrible it was.
Thank you.
Sherry Beck.
Good morning.
Good morning, board members, Mr. Lee, Mr. Cruz. My name is Sherry Beck. I hesitated coming up here, but I thought after listening to all the comments, we need to be reminded that of Mr. Lee's comments that there are a lot of court cases out there. I have read in the paper that there is taxpayers' expense involved with adopting a commission. I would like some clarification on that and what is expected on putting forth taxpayers' money for a commission that could be reviewing and deciding on different plans for the grows when they could be overturned by the courts. Are we just wasting their time and our time and taxpayers' money? I agree with Mr. Lee's on his recommendations, and I hope that the board supports those. The prior presenter mentioned property rights. People who have property in the community, in their subdivisions with grows, know that their property rights are being affected as well because their property values are going down. I have been told that when I campaigned for supervisor. And that's another thing I'm really surprised at Ms. Lucero and her comments on the board because she supported the current board member that was elected to represent her area. And now she is criticizing him. Thank you very much, and I hope that you will agree with Mr. Lee's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. That concludes the request to speak. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the board? Please step forward.
Rodney Jones, Anderson.
Good morning.
I think you need to put this committee together. Yes, there are laws that may change in the near future, like was mentioned before. The state Supreme Court is hearing the Riverside case, opening arguments today. That's going to be a major decision. Whatever the court's rule, if you have a committee together that looks at, by the time you put this committee together, the rulings will be out and they'll be able to move forward with whatever the rulings are. I think the committee's needed. I stated that from the beginning. You guys don't know all the issues. Until all the issues are on the table and can be discussed, you're trying to put a Band-Aid on an arterial bleed, and it's just not going to work. That's why we're back here for the same issue a year after the ordinance was implemented. So I believe that you need to put this together so you've got, this will give you a step in the right direction and make you proactive instead of being reactive to something that comes along. And any parts of your ordinance that aren't up to snuff, these people can be looking at it. So, and I would throw my hat in the ring if you would consider me. I'd be willing to work with the group, whoever. Thank you much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi. I live up in Shingletown and,
Name, please.
oh, Robert Walker.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Walker.
I live up in Shingletown and we're definitely going to be affected by however this all works out. We'd really like to see some patient input, some citizen input, besides your august selves in deciding this issue. We'd really like to see it. We think it's a wise step to involve the community and more than just some radical from either side. There are level-headed people on both sides of this question that are willing to look at all the aspects of the issue with rational thinking, not with policy-based or politically based or political agendas that they're trying to follow. I think we can all work that out. Potentially. Making a committee with citizen involvement, that can be a good thing. Groupthink, that can be a terrible thing. But, you know, we all try to do what we can. So, go ahead, take the step. There are some interesting legal challenges coming up and legal questions that will be answered, we hope, to provide us a lot more clarity. I found it interesting that all these decisions are happening on the same day, kind of a synchronous thing. But the impact of what they do in the next few days and in the coming weeks as they form their decision is going to make a big impact on how you guys deal with this, I'm sure. So let's all work together and find out how this is going to impact all of our communities, because we don't want to see a constant conflict. We're tired of it. Everybody's tired of it. We're all tired of the fear-mongering and the political grandstanding. We'd like to see some rational, level-headed thinking come to the forefront here. This really is truly a remarkable plan. And research from many, many studies are showing effectiveness. And my personal experience has been that I have seen 3 people who the medical community gave up on, oncology gave up on. They were sent home to die. I just talked to them this morning. All 3 of them. They're all still alive. 2 of them are cancer-free, and the 3rd one is working on it. Tumors are going down. So my personal experience says we need to really examine what we're doing here, because this is an actual cure for many cancers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lees, you presented to us a staff report for the benefit of those who have asked questions. And in the interest of clarity, would you summarize again your observations for us?
You bet. And for the one speaker who had mentioned that she wanted these certain things that I had mentioned adopted as it related to 2011 ordinances, those items that I mentioned as far as enforcing the 2011 ordinance are things that the board does not have to take action on. I am simply reporting back to the board telling you that I'm going to do it. And so it's not that by not voting on it or saying no, that unless you direct me not to do it. So I'm not saying because you're not taking action to vote yes on that, that it's not, it's not going to happen. I'm absolutely going to do that because that is part of the 2011 ordinance. So I'm going forward with those items in a way to enforce that which was approved a year and a half ago. That's the one item.
If I could just interrupt, I think that's, if I remember correctly, that's one of the votes we took at the last meeting as well, was for you to do this. So you've been given direction.
Exactly,
to do this, so.
exactly, is to put steps into place to. As it relates to the other recommendation, which was that because at our last meeting we had brought forward a new or an amended ordinance to include things like indoor groves and some other things. And that recommendation coming from me was to not go forward with that with that at this time. Now, because we talked about making that enhancement, certainly the board came back and said, well, if we're going to make this enhancement before we adopt it, we want to have a advisory committee that will look at these potential changes and see how they would impact. My concern is based on all the feedback that we've received, and that's from all sides, based on the current laws that are still pending, that it's premature to adopt that new ordinance or any changes to the existing ordinance, number one. And because of that, I think it nullifies the reason to go forward with an advisory committee at this time. Doesn't mean that once laws are put into place and we are now faced with how are we going to create an ordinance that may have to adopt to the new laws, doesn't mean that we won't come back to that. I'm just saying at this time, I don't see the process, and it would be my recommendation that we do not go forward with that.
Thank you, Mr. Lees. Supervisor Giacomini.
Thank you, Chairman Kehoe. Larry, could you explain a little bit the budget? I mean, you're going to fund 2 new positions, is if I'm hearing you correct. And so explain to me, where the money will come from a little more clearly. And, we have that motto, we don't spend what we don't have.
Right,
so,
right,
okay.
Right. Nor would I ever recommend that. But with that being said, the resource management position for the ordinance and officer is going to come from our general fund. That is discretionary dollars that we will have to use, and we're looking at about $80,000 for that potential funding. The sheriff's, any increase in the sheriff's positions would need to come from the public safety fund, which we do have some dollars in the fund balance to handle an additional deputy or 2. Now, it may not be a brand new deputy, it may be overtime, we're looking at that. It may be extra help coming back, things like that. So we're not exactly sure what it will prove to be, and we will have to come back to make those budget amendments anyway to the board, so you'll have a chance to vote on that before it actually happens. But I did want to be clear that this is not free. There is a cost associated with this, as there would be with the committee. And it's a board-appointed committee, which means it's a Brown Act, which is a good thing, which means it's open to the public. Anybody could attend, even if you are not a committee member. So that means they'll probably be held in a room this big, because I imagine there'll be a lot of interest. We'll have, based on comments that we've heard today, there probably needs law enforcement presence to make sure everybody's calm, and there needs staff, and there'll probably need to be a professional facilitator. And so with that, and knowing the costs that could be involved with that, knowing that laws are going to change, I stand firm on my recommendation that we not go forward with the committee at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Lees. Anything else? Okay. Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Kehoe. Mr. Lees, thank you, as always, for what I believe is a wise path forward. You've clearly outlined the direction from the board as already given to you and the ordinance as it exists, and you're providing a way to deal with what we already have on the books, and I appreciate that. I think it is aimed clearly at the illegal grows, non-compliant grows within Shasta County, and that has been the issue. That has been the issue. I know you're not looking for a vote or anything, but I'll just say I publicly support the use of the finances as available from the general fund and from the public safety area to take care of what we have already put in place. The only thing lacking from the ordinance as it exists was the ability to actually do anything with it. And so you are completing what we began a year ago. Thank you.
Anyone else? I will make this observation between our meeting at last time and this time. We have listened attentively to 43 speakers, and I think we've got a good feel for the opinion of most folks. I concur with Supervisor Baugh. I think, Mr. Lees, you've made some judicious recommendations to us, and while we're not looking for a vote, I certainly would concur with them. Anyone else? Mr. Modi, no?
Yes, please, thank you. Just a couple comments. Several people or speakers have said that we need to be educated and know the laws and stuff, and I won't speak for my colleagues, but I'm very familiar with what the laws are and what the proposition allows 215, as well as the follow-up laws have been passed. So just to clarify that issue. Also, one of the speakers mentioned that we should be, we're really concerned about the massive grows and we should be going after them, and that's correct. I think what is being missed on some of the speakers, although like most of them I think get it, is that we have an ordinance, and those who stay within the ordinance should not have any issue with the county. One of the speakers mentioned she had her 6 plants, and so again, we don't go by numbers, but 6 plants is probably well within the square footage we have, so that's not a problem. It's the ones I think that Mr. Kemp is talking about, is those who are not growing the cartel plantations, but they're maybe allowed to have, let's say, 15 square feet or 200 square feet rather of growing, and they're growing 500 square feet or 800 square feet. Those are the ones who are pushing the limits of the ordinance and are causing the problems, I think, for most of their neighbors. I did agree with one of the speakers that we're kicking the can down the road. I think that's very true. I think eventually this is going to come back, and we're probably going to deal with it as the laws change. And I do think, quite frankly, that eventually we're going to have a committee put together to discuss these issues with people from both sides to see if we can come to some common ground, because otherwise, again, we're sort of fighting this uphill battle that's changing yearly with the laws. But sooner or later, probably some discussion from both sides would serve us well, I think. Although I would just add that I think your recommendation today, I think we need to see if we can't clean up some of the issues with our current ordinance, and at that point, we might as well move forward and see how we work on that and let the laws, the case decisions fall out and see where they fall.
Thank you, Mr. Modi. Anything else? Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our discussion on item R4. We will now move to item R5. Thank you for your attendance today. R5 is to receive a report from the Shasta County Economic Development Corporation and consider adopting resolutions supporting the expansion of the Shasta Metro Enterprise Zone. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Kehoe, members of the board. Megan Dorney, Administrative Analyst, Shasta County Administrative Office. The item before you is to receive a short presentation from the Economic Development Corporation of Shasta County about the Enterprise Zone and to consider adopting a resolution supporting the expansion of the Shasta Metro Enterprise Zone into the communities of Palo Cedro, Bella Vista, Bernie, Fall River Mills, MacArthur, Castle, Mountain Gate, Round Mountain, and Montgomery Creek. And Mr. Mark Lascelles from the Economic Development Corporation of Shasta County is going to give a short presentation on the Enterprise Zone.
Thank you, Ms. Dorney. Good morning, Mr. Lascelles.
Good morning, Chairman Kehoe, members of the board. My name is Mark Lascelles. I am president of the Economic Development Corporation of Shasta County. I've read the staff report, and I find it to be an accurate representation of this project, so I won't bore you with details of going back through it. But I just very briefly want to touch on some key pieces in that to draw your attention to. I have with me this morning Chris Peterson from my office, who is our new manager of the Enterprise Zone for this area, and Doug Wright, who is on my board and represents the Bernie Chamber of Commerce here this morning. A few quick things I want to just mention. I'll be just 2 minutes. The program was designed to service distressed, low economic regions. It fits perfectly for this area. It's an expansion of what we're doing, going into an area that badly needs it. The program only rewards employers for hiring disadvantaged employees, those being unemployed, state assistants, veterans, Native Americans, disabled, etc. So they only get rewarded for hiring those types of people and getting them back into the workforce. In addition, the county and state both benefit by taking somebody off state assistance and at no additional cost getting them back into the workforce. The program provides a competitive economic advantage for that region. Now if someone is looking at Red Bluff or looking at Chico or looking at Bernie, Bernie now has a competitive advantage. It's only in 42 areas of the state. A lot of the state does not have it. This is going to be of real value to Bernie in trying to attract somebody to the area, and they're working on 2 or 3 projects now. Hopefully this will assist them. A couple of final things. It will keep dollars in the Shasta County economy, and particularly in the eastern Shasta County economy, As those people get jobs, they buy homes, they buy things for their homes, and that stays in that region. Finally, last year, this county created 2,265 new vouchers. We estimate a conservative value of $30 million and upwards of $50 or $60 million that stay in this county. We have no accurate number because it's on the record of the accounting records of the companies that it's in. The reason I'm stating this strongly is that we're fighting hard to keep this in the state budget. As you know, most areas of the state do not have enterprise zones, and so their representation, including the governor, do not support this at this time. So far, it is in the budget. We're doing everything we can to keep it there because we need to keep those dollars in our economy. With that, I'm available for any questions. I should, if I may, just thank both Chris, Megan Dorney with the county, and Dave Powers with the county GIS for all the hours of work they put into it. They have looked at every parcel between Reading and Fall River Mills and looked at what's on that parcel, the development of that parcel, the size of that parcel, the zoning of that parcel, and they can tell you every inch of that Highway 299 all the way down.
Mr. Lascelles, two questions, please. Number one, what was the rationale for identifying these individual sections of the county? And two, what's the anticipated consequence of taking this action today?
Okay. The rationale was we were asked, we went out and had a meeting 9 months ago with the members of the Eastern County, being Fall River Mills and Bernie, to see what we can do to try and stimulate some economic development in that area. We were asked by them to go back and look, and at the same time, the enterprise zones had just come out with some changes in their laws, allowing us to expand without being contiguous. Previously, it had to be contiguous expansion only. When that changed, it gave us an opportunity to open up that part of the county and hopefully help them. In terms of the benefits to it, I'm going to hand this over to Doug Wright, who's actually representing that area, and let him share one or two of those with you.
Very good. Good morning, Mr. Wright.
Good morning, Chairman Kehoe. Good morning, members of the board. I'm Doug Wright. I am, as Mark said, a member of the board of directors for the Economic Development Corporation. I am also a former member of the Bernie community. I was born and raised there. I now have an office there as well as an office in Reading. I spend a lot of time up there, and I represent the Chamber of Commerce. The result that will come from this change and expansion of the enterprise zone is, I think, what Mark said, it'd be threefold. There's a competitive advantage for the area. Going up there now, it seems to be a shell of its former self. It was a very industrial area, logging, those types of forestry practices that are not so active anymore. I think this will perhaps encourage a new business, a new enterprise to consider the Bernie area, and this will allow for that. Second, it'll bring the disadvantaged back to work. There are a lot of folks up there that are unemployed, that are disabled. And if an employer is able to keep a few more bucks every time that they have to write a check for payroll tax, they might consider being able to bring someone else on. This will help that. And thirdly, it keeps the money in the economy. The folks up there, they're going to come down the hill to spend their money down here. But if they don't have the money, they're not going to make the trip. So I think overall, the county benefits. Everybody's going to have a few more dollars. They're going to be able to go to a movie, maybe go out to dinner, maybe buy that tub of ice cream for their kids that they weren't able to afford. That money's going to stay here. So I think that those are really the benefits and the results that will come out of the expansion of the enterprise zone up there. We're not saying it's a cure-all for everything that that exists out there, but it's certainly a benefit that will help a little bit.
Good. So, thank you, Mr. Wright. Are there Supervisor Giacomini?
My microphone's not on. Thank you, Chairman Kehoe. I'd like very much to thank Mark and Doug and staff for working on this. I was at the initial meeting, like Mark said, 9 months ago, and it really brought together those communities to discuss what can we do to really kind of kickstart our economies up here. And Mark and Doug took this by the horns and really worked hard to make sure we get these enterprise zones in place.
Good. Thank you. Question of Mr. Lascelles. So can the board take unilateral action on this morning? Do we need any other jurisdiction to agree with this?
Yes, the other 3 cities will be having it on their councils this evening. All members of the enterprise zone have to basically vote on this.
So this requires a unanimous vote. That's a question.
A unanimous vote of this organization?
Of all four?
Will require a unanimous vote of all, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions, comments? May we have a motion, please?
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion of the motion? All those?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Prior to actually taking the vote, I'd like to declare that my wife is an elected official of the City of Anderson and receives compensation. Neither my wife or myself have any vested interest in the enterprise zone. Under discussion, I will say, an extremely valuable tool to the entire area of Shasta County and the cities, and I'm just thrilled to see the expansion and the use of this in the Intermountain region. Very good job.
Mr. Cruz.
Just very briefly to clarify Supervisor Giacomini's motion, the motion is to approve staff's recommendation.
Yes, correct.
We now have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wright, Mr. Lascelles. Appreciate your efforts. Item R6, adopt a resolution which adds language to the Shasta County personnel rules pertaining to veterans preference points. Good morning.
Good morning. Michelle Schaefer, Director of Support Services. Chairman Kehoe, honorable board members, I am honored to bring this forward today. This is a resolution that would amend the personnel rules and provide 5 additional points for those qualified veterans who have passed all of the aspects of a recruitment process up to and including their oral exam. And as the eligibility list is being established based on those points, those qualified veterans will receive an additional 5 points. And we're asking for approval.
Supervisor Modi.
Yeah, just a quick question, just for reference, point of reference, I guess. When you say 5 additional points, is that on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, or I mean, how many?
Our qualifying panels are the points are usually up to 100. And so say through all of their tests and exams, they have an average of 75 points, they would get an additional 5 points to be to 80.
Okay, so they had 3 different panels, and the average of those was 75. They actually get up to an 80 versus taking the 5 points and averaging it over the 3 panels.
Right. Yes, it's after all qualifying steps are taken.
Basically, it's more or less like a 5% bump, kind of in scoring.
Could be. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Further questions?
I'm going to move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion of the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Schaefer, I'm very pleased to see that you have moved this forward. We've been working on this a long time, and I think it's a fine tribute to those that have served their country that we do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item R7, resolution designating RESPAD Incorporated as a facility authorized to evaluate and treat persons pursuant to the Letterman-Petras Short Act. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Kehoe, members of the board. My name is Dean True, Branch Director of Adult Services for the Shasta County Health and Human Services Agency. So the resolution before you is, in fact, regarding the new psychiatric health facility to be operated by RESPAD, seeking designation to be a 72-hour intensive treatment and evaluation facility. This is pursuant to California Welfare and Institutions Code under the Letterman-Petras Short Act, and is necessary before the facility can accept people on an involuntary hold for psychiatric care. Those would be either adults on a 5150 or youth on a 5585.50. As you may recall, the county operated a facility similar to this up until its closure in 2004. Since that time, people that require this kind of involuntary treatment are transported to out-of-county facilities, primarily in the Sacramento Greater Bay Area, such as Northern Valley Behavioral Health, Sierra Vista, those kinds of facilities. In June of last year, 2012, the board approved a contract with RESPAD to provide 2 basic services: outpatient crisis stabilization services, and when opened, an inpatient psychiatric health facility. In July 1 of last year, ResPAD began delivering the outpatient crisis stabilization services on our Breslauer campus. During that time, they have now secured a location, they have done appropriate modifications, and they have had a site certification by the state. There's only one item remaining before the state will issue its actual license to operate, and that is a fire clearance from the city of Reading. Once we had hoped that that fire clearance would have been in place before today's meeting, but allowed for the fact that it might not be. And that is why there were actually two options before you this morning. The first option was simply a declarative, we designate ResPAD as this involuntary 72-hour facility. The second allows for the stipulation for the designation to take effect upon lawful approval by the state. This will allow them to begin, once you have designated that, this allows them to begin accepting the involuntary clients in our area. We are, of course, very anxious to have the facility open for two main reasons. The first and foremost reason is we will be allowed to treat people locally in our community rather than sending them out of county. It won't prevent it all the time, but it will increase significantly more our ability to treat people within our community. The second reason is that the outpatient crisis stabilization services that are currently being operated on Breslauer will move over and be co-located on the site of the psychiatric health facility, and this will result in some cost savings to the county. I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have about this.
Questions of Mr. Modi?
Yes, two things. One of the biggest problems is the mental health facilities, as well, but more importantly, the medical facilities and the law enforcement has faced is once they lost our facilities down on Breslauer, that we were overloading our ER rooms, and then once people were cleared medically, they had to wait until a place could be found to send them someplace, many times actually out of county. So will this take some of that pressure off law enforcement and off the ER rooms as far as having people in their facilities for 24 hours or sometimes longer?
Yeah, it is certainly our hope. Right now in the state of California, there are not enough inpatient beds for people who need that kind of involuntary treatment. And by us opening a facility here in our county, we have now expanded our ability to place people more quickly. Back in July 1, when they started doing the outpatient crisis stabilization services, the local ERs began to feel less that flow out of their ERs quickly. We anticipate that will continue and hopefully get better. ResPAD will have an arrangement with the local ERs, both Mercy and Shasta Regional.
And my second question is, you alluded to the fact that you're waiting for the clearance from the fire department, and since you don't have that, are you looking for us to approve?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking for, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear. I'm looking for you to approve this second option, which stipulates upon licensure, you designate them as this facility.
And that's the motion I want to make.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Yes,
Second,
there is. Under discussion, Mr. True.
Yes.
Following up on Supervisor Modi's question then, relative to 5150s and other service to be provided, where does the medical clearance get taken care of? Is it with the local hospitals?
Yes, that's a very...
Patients are going to have to go to the hospital, get cleared medically, and then move to the ResPAD facility. Is that correct?
That is essentially correct. That is essentially what's been happening for many years, right. And it happens throughout the state of California. Essentially, they need that medical clearance. Such facilities as a psychiatric health facility such as this are really they are really held accountable for only accepting people that they can handle. They are not a medical facility. They are a psychiatric facility, and so they have to be very careful about making sure that the person is healthy enough to receive care and doesn't require any kind of real hospital medical care. And so that's typically done at a local emergency room, that clearance.
So there still will be an impact on the emergency room?
Yes, there will.
Okay.
Yes, there will.
Supervisor Baugh, please.
Thank you, Chair Kehoe. I just want to state the obvious here. In light of the things that we've had on today's meeting, while this particular subject doesn't rise to the hype of medical marijuana, I want to say that this is one of the most important in a series of decisions and items that this board has considered, and for the entire county, and actually regionally for the North State. So I hope that this decision does not get lost in the above the fold or the page 6 recognition for what's happening here today, because it is singularly the most important thing we are doing today.
Thank you.
I have a final question of Mr. Cruz, Mr. True. By adopting the subject resolutions, does the county incur any liability whatsoever?
As far as it's kind of a broad statement.
Asking an attorney if there's liability.
It's certainly a lawful action, and there are certain immunities that exist depending upon how Mr. Respad works and as far as they do, but I could not say that it doesn't incur any liability, but I'm comfortable with the proposed action if the board should proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Further questions of Mr. True? We have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation. Is there further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. True.
Okay, thank you.
Item R8. This is an agreement with Voorhees Robertson Justice Services, LLC for juvenile rehabilitation facility transition services. And by way of background, at a previous meeting on January 8th, a similar staff report came before us, and it required a 4/5 vote, and the board declined to participate it on a 3-2 vote. So to start us going, would you characterize this proposal in juxtaposition with that proposal, which the board did not agree to move forward on?
Thank you. Chairman Kehoe, members of the board, I'm Wes Foreman, the Chief Probation Officer, and obviously I am here presenting something that was similar to our presentation that was on January 8th. However, after hearing your concerns and questions, there are several key differences. Number one, staff will take on more of the transition work. We've already mobilized our transition team of 8 members. We have 2 supervising probation officers, 4 supervising juvenile detention officers, the division director, and the assistant chief probation officer. They've already actively worked towards the transitional events. This, in the previous proposal, much of the work in these areas would have been handled by the consultant. Number 2, we've successfully negotiated a smaller, less expensive consultant agreement. Obviously, by doing more of the work ourselves, the consultant was able to reduce his cost to us. And number 3, the contract costs will now be managed within the department's budget and not require a transfer of funds. And we were able to accomplish that through the following means: some salary savings, some facilities maintenance savings, and some professional services maintenance. Despite these modifications, we are still in need of a person with the experience of transitioning into a modern juvenile rehabilitation facility. An oversight consultant will take pressure off of current staff that have taken on substantial additional work, reduce overtime necessary to complete the many tasks necessary to make the transition, and provide a high level of confidence to the team in charge of the project. There are too many matters of safety and security to risk not being prepared on the day we open. And with that, I request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Questions of Mr. Foreman?
I'll move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you. By Mr. Chappelle. Have a Supervisor Baugh.
Oh, go ahead if you had to. Oh, I can, yes.
All right, we're under discussion.
Very good, very good. The last time this came forward, I voted no. There were 2 main reasons. One, it involved public safety funds, and I see that that's been eliminated. We're not looking for any general funds here. The other reason I voted no is that I said in casting my vote that I thought you had every ability necessary to perform this function in-house on your own and that you didn't need a consultant. I've read the scope of the work, Mr. Foreman, and the scope of the work in my mind still seems to entail items that, that I would think that you have. And if not you, your staff. Combined efforts. I do salute your moving forward with forming an in-house group to facilitate this. This report, however, on page 2 says, second paragraph down, in talking about working on the transition issues, says, but they do not have the expertise and experience necessary to make a successful and timely transition. In the many meetings and contacts that I've had since the last time we voted on this, that has been made very clear to me. In fact, if anything, I've had continued staff comments, continued analyst comments, continued contacts and calls from the public and even from within your own organization. Everyone seems to say the same thing, that you don't have the experience, and I will tell you, they are referring to you as a leader of the organization. So I'm going to surprise you with my vote by voting yes today, but that is not to be seen as a vote of confidence. In fact, it's a vote of no confidence. I'm voting yes because I have come to the conclusion that you do not possess the abilities I believe you should have to lead the transition.
So we have a motion and a second before Mr. Chappelle. Supervisor Chappelle.
Yeah, you have a construction date, don't you, that has to be met in this project?
Well, the anticipated date of completion of the project is the end of August. I do believe they're close to being on time with that still, and there is some necessary requirement to be within that range, even if it's a little bit late, yes.
Is it going to have financial consequences?
If it's delayed too far, there potentially could be some.
Okay. So these people are to assist more in like a supervisor or a contractor would with a crew that's building the house. So you can implement your procedures in a more expedient way?
Yes, it's hard to explain when we talk about experience and not experience. I appreciate the fact, Supervisor Baugh, that you thought that the staff had the experience to manage this project. And given the proper amount of time and stuff, I would agree with that. I have the confidence in my staff. I have the confidence in the probation department to manage that. However, we are behind the curve in terms of managing a transitional part of this project. And the difference I see is, I'm trying to come up with a real good example of it, is that if a family gets into a little bit of dysfunction and they need a little bit of assistance from a counselor or a therapist or whatever, it's not really great to bring somebody from the inside, even though they may have the experience of that. Because you're working within the system and stuff, it's always good to have an expert that's already done this kind of work before to be looking at it from the outside point of view and be asking those final questions of, hey, did you take care of this? Did you put it in the right sequence? And those things are always important. So whether it's a consultant acting in that way, whether it's a coach, that bit of experience just makes us, helps us keep on time and make sure that we're asking all the right questions to properly get all the tasks taken care of on time.
And it's not because your staff can't do it, it's because of the time frame that's been imposed on you, is that correct?
Well, that's partly true, yes.
Further comments, please? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Foreman, thank you. Next item on our agenda is R9, New Adult Rehabilitation Facility, SB 1022, Financing Application and Budget Amendments. We do have two requests from the public to speak. I think we'll listen to the presentation, and then if it's okay, we'll hear from the people from the public. Sheriff Pasenko.
Good morning, Chairman Kehoe, members of the board. Tom Pasenko, Shasta County Sheriff. Before you today, I'm requesting some funding to apply for an application for a facility, custodial facility down on Breslauer Lane. It's as a result of Senate Bill 1022, which provided $500 million statewide for new rehabilitative programming space. $100 million is available statewide to small counties such as Shasta. Small county projects or proposals are limited to one proposal with a $20 million cap. A 5% county match is required. And in-kind matches such as land or the value of the land does count towards the match as well. You're well aware of the need for jail bed space. The jail has a rated capacity of 381. It's limited to a court agreement to 90% of that rated capacity, or 343 beds. Capacity releases started in 1993 and have increased since. Over 3/4 of the jail population is unsentenced and awaiting trial, and the jail consistently runs into a capacity between 85 and 90%. Budget cuts in 2009 resulted in a closure of one of the floors, and that floor reopened last August completely, fully staffed, but it quickly filled to its capacity of about 128 beds there. Alternatives such as out-of-county bed contracts were recently made. We have 5 out-of-county contracts for beds in their counties. That does come at a great expense. We do use home electronic monitoring, or electronic monitoring, referred to it as EM or HEC, and theirs being used for offender accountability. SB 1022 funding has an emphasis, a very strong emphasis, on rehabilitative programs, treatment, education, vocational training, inmate services, and transitional custodial housing, just not simply building more jail beds. The current jail has limited space for programs, and the need certainly exists for a continuum of programs, services, and treatment for the inmate population towards rehabilitation and reintegration into our communities. This project would be in collaboration with what's currently proposed by the Probation Department with the Day Reporting Center that they're moving forward with. The population groups between the inmate population and the population group that probation supervises have a significant overlap. Often when the inmates are done doing their time, they're under the supervision of probation, and they have very similar needs. There's a need for inmate programs and services to start while they are in custody or serving their sentence, and then have a seamless continuum of supervision and services after their sentence is served. The services and program which aid in rehabilitation and improve the outcomes of this population are needed. In addition to drug and alcohol treatment and mental health services programs, may include inmate work programs, education such as GED work so they can get their diploma or GED, vocational programs, and training for ultimate job placement, and more. The facility would be near existing county services on Breslauer Lane such as social services, mental health, and public health. The area is accessible to public transportation and has a route right there. And there's a very well-established history of inmate facilities and programs in the area without problems. I envision this facility would have a limited number of beds for male and female inmates, and these beds would serve the sentenced population. There would be no contracting of the beds for out-of-county use or renting them out to other counties, because we certainly have the need here. In fact, I believe it's projected to be close to 550 bed deficit by 2018 that we're looking at from a previous needs assessment. The housing of the area would be low-level offender dormitory style housing. The current jail kitchen and laundry services could be relocated to the facility. This would provide vocational training and free up existing jail space. And that jail space, which is in the basement of the jail now, that could be converted into medium security housing, but such a plan for that remodel and changing that over would be a completely separate plan with separate financing. Earlier, I presented some operational costs for a big jail, which was about 232 beds. That was around $6 million operational cost. We're looking at this for the housing area of the complex to be an early estimate is about $2 million or be under that. Upon completion of an approved design, we'd be in a better position to provide a more accurate annual operating cost. The timeline for this application is still being formalized by the state. However, it's expected it's going to be short and be very expeditious. Once an executive steering committee is formed, the call for applications and to be submitted probably by May of this year, and then that executive steering committee will review the proposals by the counties submitting them throughout the state, and it's expected that the counties will be notified of a potential award by June 30th or early July of this year. Financing, it is estimated that the preparation for this funding application will be about $88,500. Available within the sheriff's budgeted funds are $30,000, which will go towards this, and if approved, an additional $58,500 would come from the public safety fund needed to fund the application process. Part of the process would include updating the jail needs assessment to incorporate the impacts of AB 109, which need to be articulated into the application. And there would be some architectural services as well. And today, for some of those details, Director of Public Works Pat Minturn is here if you have questions regarding that part, or a representative from Nichols, Melberg, Rosetto is also here in the audience. If Shasta County's application was approved, I would return to you for consideration to accept the project funding, just as we have done in the past with other projects. And there is certainly a need for decades for a prison, for a need for the beds. Prison realignment has caused additional impacts, but again, it has to be an emphasis with programs and services, and I'm exploring every opportunity available to improve offender accountability and public safety, and I ask for your approval for this funding for the application. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Sheriff Pacinko. Are there questions of Sheriff Pacinko at this time? All right, then we'll move on to the public comment period. Our first speaker is Ms. Sally Riley, followed by Mr. Charles Alexander. Good morning. Good afternoon, Ms. Riley.
Thank you very much. My name is Sally Riley. I'm the Senior Field Representative for the Construction Industry Force Account Council. We monitor public agencies and work as a resource and a support system also for public works projects. I had planned to say a lot of nice things about you, but you've been hearing them already today, so we'll just move on. I want to say that I'm here representing the construction industry, urging you to go forward with this project. When you look at $20 million or $18 million of construction, those dollars return threefold to your county. You keep more people off of public services and a drain on the budget. It would be a good project. We need to start, though, by going through the application. I look at also the fact that 80 beds are 80 less property crimes with a possibility of being committed, and also 80 opportunities for people to make different choices and move forward with their lives with the education or whatever that they need. Again, I urge you to go forward with this. If you get down to a funding problem, then let's wait till turning it down would be better than missing the opportunity. Thank you very much for your time and for all that you've done here this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Appreciate you being here today. Mr. Alexander, please. Mr. Meredith follows Mr. Alexander.
Thank you for the opportunity here this afternoon to address the board on the matter of the proposed reentry facility. On the fifth paragraph of the second page of the staff report, it says that this facility is to be operated for those about to re-enter the community. This is not a facility to necessarily to relieve the pressure brought to bear upon our capacity release situation vis-a-vis AB 109 and the consent decree. What we need are additional custody beds, not a reentry facility such as was proposed back in 2007. Under AB 109, several offenses are no longer prisonable. Those convicted serve their time in county jail. Additionally, under realignment, persons arrested for parole violations do no longer await their hearings in prison. They await their hearings in county jail. And those convicted of parole violations serve not their time in prison, but in jail. So to have a reentry facility would potentially close off that bed space from other uses. With a reentry facility, there is little or no inmate accountability. After all, the last year of sentence is the last year of sentence. Since state prisoners are legally required to return to county of last legal residence, they can, depending on the definition applied to the term local inmate, be deemed local inmates. So here we are again, going back to the reentry facility issue that was considered by the board back in late 2007 and early 2008. In the staff report also, there's a reference to this facility being minimum security. Given the risks inherent with a minimum security facility, why should the facility not have a better security level than that? Reason fire camps can get by with a minimum security facility, level is because they are considerably more remote than the proposed facility. Also, is this another reimbursement type grant such as was considered in AB 900 Phase 2 application? Because a reimbursement grant was previously rejected, as I recall. So if we're going to have a new facility, it needs to be for more than just re-entry. We need more custody beds. We do not need a re-entry facility such as was proposed years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. By way of background, Mr. Alexander provided us with the email outlining several points, 4 points, and I will make that part of our record, Mr. Alexander. Our next speaker is Mr. Meredith, followed by Ms. Dolores Lucero.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First of all, it's my first board meeting back since the new board members have been seated. Congratulations on your recent election. And in light of some of the comments that were made today, I want to thank all 5 of you for your service to the County of Shasta. Unlike a lot of people who criticize you and other elected officials in the North State, you've all had the courage to put your names out in the forefront and dedicate yourselves to public service, and it's appreciated. In light of the issue that we have before us today, I'm here representing the Northern California Building and Construction Trades Council to urge you to move forward with this request from the sheriff. There were already a lot of issues brought up by Ms. Sally Riley in regards to the need for these 80 additional beds in whatever capacity they are going to be used for. 80 additional beds to house offenders that may commit property crimes is extremely important here in the County of Shasta. But what I'm here to speak about in particular is the economic impacts of constructing this facility in Shasta County. This project would be something of an economic stimulus package that you would be providing to your residents. Unlike other public agencies in the North State, you've embraced public works projects, you've embraced the Public Works Contract Code, and you build your projects under law, under prevailing wage laws. And these wages empower middle-class workers to stay in the middle class. It empowers people that aren't in the middle class to get and ascend to the middle class. And it provides income that they spend on other Shasta County and Redding businesses. So like Ms. Riley spoke about, these dollars transfer over 3 times before they leave Shasta County. So the impact that these wages and these jobs would have on the overall economic viability of Shasta County are huge, and I urge you to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meredith. Our next speaker is Ms. Dolores Lucero. Following Ms. Lucero's observations, if there is anyone else that would like to address the board, if you'd come over and we'll provide you with that time. Ms. Lucero.
Thank you. My concern is that every time we talk about public safety, it seems like we're constantly talking about it, but we're not doing anything. We're constantly spending money instead of doing something and really making a big decision to look at how much money we spend in the years that you've been a public official and people who've been involved. All that money you spent, you basically could have bought a building and made a good, solid jail without putting it in the middle of a city. You can't do nothing with that jail. You can't build up, you can't go sideways, you're stuck. So basically now you're constantly spending money on other buildings, and now you're trying to spend more money on beds. I understand we need room, but you're going about the wrong way. You basically need to look at another building. Start looking how much money you're spending. This is not going to change. It's a cycle that you're constantly going in circles. And guess who's getting affected in that circle? The public is. You are putting the public where you are not looking at their safety. And guess who's more responsible besides you? Our sheriff, Tom Paseco. He is more responsible for the public safety for our county. We need somebody who's going to do the right thing to defend and to protect the citizens. Why haven't you or the sheriff and the people decided to build the building? I only been here in this county 12 years, and all I've seen is people talk, people go in circles. It's a cycle. You need to break the cycle because you're actually jeopardizing people's safety. And it's not going to go anywhere. You're just wasting their tax dollars here. And it's their money. You make the decisions. But the decisions that you make sometimes are bad because it doesn't go anywhere. It's a circle. You need to look at, like you talk about making this county a better county. You need to start looking at what you can do for the future. It's not going to change if you continue going this route. You're basically jeopardizing the citizens' safety, and you're spending money, and pretty soon we're not going to have any money. And I say we, because I also have a business that I come into this town. I come into Redding. I work. I live in Shasta Lake, but this county is where I have to provide my income. And I see that it's getting worse. There's no jobs. All we're doing is spending money. Pretty soon we're going to run out of money. Thank you.
So to clarify, Ms. Lucero, you're speaking in opposition to this proposal.
Absolutely. The reason why is you don't have the money.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this morning? Sheriff Paseco, if you have any supplemental remarks, and then we'll ask the board if they have questions.
Thank you. An earlier speaker referred to this as a reentry facility, as was proposed under AB 900 Phase 1, which was referred to as a secure entry facility. That is inaccurate. This is not a reentry facility or any contract with the state of California. There is no consent decree with the jail capacity. That is an agreement with the court and the county, or the county and the sheriff. It does relieve capacity releases and concerns for those people that I do have to incarcerate that are serving time, especially under AB 109, that have longer sentences within the county jail. And it does provide housing for some of those sentence offenders that can either be like a work furlough program and then incorporate it with our work release program. And it allows also some opportunities, because this is expected to be, if approved, and we are awarded the funding opportunity, also for female inmates, but there are a little bit less opportunities for female inmates on some of the work programs and sentencing housing. And also in the pods where the female inmates are housed, we are usually right at capacity there. That does affect capacity releases, so just some clarifying points. Being a minimum security facility, it is less costly to operate than what is referred to in the industry as a hard wall facility or a higher security facility such as our main jail, and that's a cost-saving value not only for the county but ultimately for the taxpayer. Thank you.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Kehoe. Sheriff Basenko, nuclear winter could not deter you from your elected duty. I want to tell you personally, I applaud you for your continued efforts to represent the citizens of Shasta County. As I see this, there are potentials for so many of our challenges to be answered with what you've brought to us. Yes, there will be a lot of questions, but what you're bringing to us by its very nature will answer most of those questions. At this point, I see this as a very probable can-do project for Shasta County, and I thank you for once again stepping forward. I will be supporting this, and I will make a motion to approve it as submitted.
Supervisor Modi? Well, is
Yes.
there a 2nd to the
yeah,
motion?
I'll second.
Okay, you're going to say no.
Yeah, I just would echo Supervisor Baugh's comments. I think you do a great job, Sheriff. Despite some comments, I think you are very concerned about public safety and always have been. I think what's important here is, as you very clearly pointed out, this is not a reentry facility. It's a rehabilitation facility or center. And I think what people need to grasp out there is that our prison system, whether it be state or even at the county level, is broken. Do you get that part? It's broken. We have a 70% recidivism rate. That's terrible. I mean, it's probably the worst in the country. And just adding more beds and just, more custody beds, as was described, is doing nothing more than considering the same old system of warehousing people and hoping they get better. And what's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And, so this is exactly what we need to do is develop systems, give people who are going to come back into our society a place where they can have a chance to get some services, get some help, work on rehabilitating them rather than just dumping them out when their sentence runs out, and gives them a chance to become a productive member of society. We cannot do what we have been doing and expect any different result. We've got to do something different. Will this ultimately be the successful thing? I don't know. I don't know. I hope so. And I think it's important that we continue to try new ways to change our population, our criminal population, to become better citizens. So I applaud you on your efforts, Sheriff.
Thank you very much.
Well said.
Supervisor Chappelle, followed by Supervisor Giacomini.
It's going to be a dorm setting for beds?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then with rehabilitation, I'm assuming classes or whatever goes on inside and possibly also outside, if the ones you get actually released outside with some
That is correct.
support.
As I stated earlier, there'd be opportunities for vocational training depending on how the facility is designed inside and outside. Also, the program services, treatment, and education such as GED or other vocational training in partnership, perhaps with like Shasta College on different programs. And those are very important. So not only could they gain some educational skills, but perhaps gain vocational skills for ultimate job placement within the community. And then, as stated earlier from the labor industry, that just the project itself would be generating jobs within the community if we were successful in our proposal.
Do we have any sort of an estimate on operation costs?
As stated earlier in the presentation, early estimates right now are at about $2 million. We're trying to keep that there or less. But as we get some type of a design layout, then we'll be better to estimate, in a position to better estimate our staffing needs there.
Is this less expensive than we're operating in the jail, the hard wall jail you're talking about?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Giacomini.
Thank you, Chairman Kehoe. Thank you, Sheriff Basenko. I think this is a step in the right direction. I think we've seen, and Mr. Modi is exactly right. what we're doing now isn't working well. So if we have the opportunity to rehabilitate people and integrate them back into society, that's a benefit for all of us. So thank you.
I have a question, Sheriff Pasenko. For the benefit of those in the audience this morning, will you define for us minimum security housing and whatever attendant risks there are in that situation? And then I think we would be remiss if we did not give Mr. Lees an opportunity to talk about the financial aspects of well, I'd certainly like to hear what you have to say. So, Sheriff Pasenko.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Kehoe. The minimum security is more to the point of inmates could easily leave, walk away if they wanted to. And some examples of that, in the past, we've had Crystal Creek Men's Camp and Crystal Creek Juvenile Facility there. There's no hard walls or hard cells to prevent the inmates from leaving. Another example of that here within our county is Sugar Pine Conservation Camp there. And that's considered minimum security, and when the inmates are out on the grade, they could choose to walk away. And then we have those conservation camps throughout the state. And other sheriff's offices that run custodial facilities have minimum security. Medium security is there is still an incarceration of the individual inside four walls. The medium comes in more as in usually dormitory style housing versus individual cells for the inmates. Sometimes they're double bunked. But the increased cost of having individual cells and then replicate the plumbing, lighting, facilities needs such as a toilet there every time in a cell adds to a great expenditure of costs in building jails and prisons. And so a dormitory style setting is a little bit less in that for the building part of it, and then also less in operational costs for the staffing of the facility.
When we talk about AB 109, we talk about the three nons. What type of people will be going down to this facility if we are successful?
More than likely, that's going to be a low-level offender, very similar to the three nons. The three nons are it referred to in Assembly Bill 109 as non-serious sex crimes, and non-violent crimes. As a result of 109, we also have the never-goes, and the never-goes are those individuals that never go to prison as a result of their crime, which is usually property crimes and drug-related crimes. And that's going to be more of the population that we end up dealing with here. Violent criminals need to be incarcerated for public safety. Violent criminals, violent sexual offenders need to be incarcerated. They need to be in prison.
One final question then, which you probably will be reticent in answering. In the second page of your staff report, you indicate about this being a new rehabilitation facility. Now, what I found quite attractive was the final sentence. All would assist towards the goal of reducing crime and improving outcomes in Shasta County. So what's the estimate on reduction of crime in Shasta County if we are successful in obtaining this? It would be swell if you said 57%.
Get your crystal ball out.
I'm unable to get my crystal ball out because right now we don't have the data, but it's successful if we can have those rehabilitative programs. Reduce recidivism, so if you're reducing a criminal from going back out and committing crimes, your crime rate should be lower. Now, there could be other outside influences, but that is all part of AB 109, our community corrections partnership and the programs that we're seeing in place with probation. This also dovetails right into that to where we can have some rehabilitative programs and hopefully change some of those individuals. Part of it has to be they're willing to change, but we need to provide that opportunity. And the other part, if they're not willing, then if they continue down the road, they're going to be incarcerated or in prison or both.
The three cities are supportive of this initiative.
I have not spoken to other city officials on this matter.
Thank you. Mr. Lees, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman Keough, members of the board. I actually made a recommendation to Sheriff Pasenko prior to this meeting of how it could be funded, but he was not in alignment, so I won't bring that up at this time. Other than that, I've actually been running the numbers on this, and I've met with Sheriff Pasenko a few times, as well as his captain that's in the jail, Mr. Pertain. Obviously, the concern I have is the money and where it's going to come from and how we're going to run this dang thing, and is it worth this initial $80,000 investment? And you take a look just based on our current jail budget. Last year was probably somewhere around 11.5 million, 11.6 million, and you kind of do the math on that and how many people we have coming and going. It's around 33,000 or 35,000, something like that. And I thought about this initial investment, 80,000, knowing that we have an off-ramp down the road if we choose not to go forward, but do we want to make this initial investment of 80,000 to begin with? And then it dawned on me, I reflected back on the addicted offender program. When you're looking at, maybe changing somebody's life, how many people would it take to make up that $80,000? Two? And it kind of struck me, Chairman Keough, when you talked about the outcomes. I thought, there is a way we could actually measure these outcomes too. I mean, if we can actually measure the it's going to take a while. I mean, it's going to take years to determine, but we can measure the outcomes, because if we look, as we do with the addicted offender program, where we see years down the road where these people are at in their lives, we can measure that and make tweaks and adjustments to the training and the teaching and the rehabilitating that we're doing to see what works and doesn't work. So I look at this initial investment of 80,000. I think, yeah, I think it is worth the investment, because we have to change very few to get that back. And then how many would it take to pay for the whole thing? Well, maybe 60 people. And I'm not naive. I don't think we're going to cut recidivism rate by 100% of those who attend there. I don't think that will be the case. But how many does it take? Not that many to where we start getting our initial investment back. I'm concerned about the 2 million figure. I've talked with Sheriff Pasenko about that. The concern I have there, I don't know how much less this is going to cost to operate, but it might, because of the nature of its operation, it might tend to make available funding from different sources that we could bring in, and not just general fund and public safety fund. And so there might be some other opportunities there, which we will look at as we go closer down the road after the needs assessment, and take a look at then how much do we really think it's going to take annually to operate this thing. And so I actually do support going forward with this based on that analysis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lees. Mr. Modi?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to your comments that rehabilitating people coming back from state prison minimally will do something, we hope.
Tough road.
Yeah, but really where we're going to make the biggest improvement is with the people before they go to state prison. And that's where we have the chance of being successful. And then so this, along with our realignment and our day reporting center, I think go hand in hand with giving the sheriff and the probation department the best chances of being successful in keeping people from rehabilitating. And you mentioned, what if it was only 1 or 2 people? I mean, as the sheriff will tell you, you can have a burglar who can do very easily 60, 80, 100 before they get caught. So you get 2 or 3 of those off the street, and it's a huge impact.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? We have a motion and a second before the board. Further discussion of that motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Sheriff Pasenko.
Thank you very much for your support and kind words.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We're going to have a closed session announcement. The board will recess to a closed session to discuss the following items, estimated at about 3 hours. We have a conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. We have public employment appointment, and finally, conference with labor negotiated. At the conclusion of the closed session, reportable action, if any, will be reported in open session. Thank you again for joining us.